qualifying. Expected it to romp away a little bit up at the front, but it seems as though the BMW is closing in, and now the top three are fairly equidistant, so we'll see what happens this time around. Pro-Am still being led by Nick Homerson, down in that 8th position overall. And then you can see further back down the field, the standings, there is that battle between the Mercedes, Lamborghini and Aston Martin in 13th, 14th and 15th place, but this is the battle for the top three as they come across the line that time. It looks as though Bassline has just lost a bit of time. He's still lapping fairly quickly. In fact, the top three all lapped within 0.2 of a second of one another, so it's very, very close up at the front with the 59 car we just saw of Alvaro Parent just behind, down in 6th position. A little jink out from one of the Nissans. That is the Nissan being started by Richard Westbrook, the GTR GT3, a car he is very used to in its GT1 form, competing in the FIA GT1 World Championship. He is right behind one of the Vita for One cars, isn't he? It is Nick Homerson, actually, so that is the battle, not really over position in class, but it's the battle for position overall, because these Pro-Am drivers not happy just to make sure they win their class. They want to get as high up the order as they possibly can, especially the amateurs, as they were, as you would say, in that pairing. They want to prove that actually they're not that bad. they're not entirely amateurs. They can hold their own with some of the quicker drivers. Down the hill towards Vale, and Westbrook has a little look up the inside, not quite close enough, but Homerson, that was enough to put him off. Homerson's gone wide. He'll hold the inside line for the double right-hander at Club. Now if the Audi's clever, he'll dart up the inside, which is exactly what he's going to do. Not quite close enough though, Bert Longat, and he has to tuck back into the slipstream. One of the Hexus Aston Martins is coming with him, side by side into Abbey, and I think Richard Westbrook knew that Nick Homerson wasn't going to duke it out around there at 100 miles an hour or so. Down into Village, that moves Richard Westbrook up into 8th position, and he will now be chasing down Gianluca Roda. A little look up the inside from the Audi, not really close enough, and if anything that's going to compromise his exit, compromise his run through Aintree, and he will start to fall back and possibly come under pressure from Jan Clare behind in the number 4 Aston Martin. You can see he has to go a little bit defensive, so Westbrook coming to 8th then. 9th position now for Nick Homerson, 10th place for Bert Longat, and 11th for Jan Clary. That's the battle we're watching at the moment. Nissan, Ferrari, Audi, Aston, 4 different manufacturers all having that little battle as they head out onto the straight to complete their 9th lap. The debris has been removed from the track down the start-finish straight, down the hangar straight, so that should no longer... Obviously there was a marshal brave enough to leg it out and pick it up. Starting to stretch his legs now at the front is Nicholas Meyer-Melnhoff. He's just beginning to pull back away after that threatening hint of pace from Bas Linders. The gap at the front now 2.1 seconds. The McLaren of Phil Quave not giving up just yet. He has only 1 second behind. Pit stops really are going to be the key time. We've already had the 19 car come into the pits, of course, with that rear left puncture, and also Alex Buncombe, who I think he has left the pits now by the looks of the timing monitor, but we'll wait and see for that one, because obviously he needs to finish the race if he wants to take the championship. There is the GT4 Lotus through Farm Corner down into the tight right-hander, and that of course is Leo Mansell starting that one, I believe, and he was Greg Mansell we spoke to on the grid. The first bit of lappery is about to occur. Giuseppe De Pasquale in the BMW M3 about to seize the blue flag and will move out of the way. Not that he really needs to move out of the way, such as the power of that Alpina. And I think this could be another quick lap from the Alpina, or a 2-minute 4.5, which is 0.3 of a second quicker. 0.3 of a second quicker than Bas Linders, but the fastest man on that last lap was the first McLaren of Phil Quaife. He's brought the gap down to just 0.8 of a second between him and second place man Bas Linders, so that's going to close in a little bit. As they exit down into Beckett's, there then still is Gianluca Roda up into 7th place, and Richard Westbrook is starting to close in now, isn't he, I think, on the last lap around. It was 1.2 seconds quicker with Richard Westbrook, so that's going to develop into a battle before very long indeed over 7th place. Gianluca Roda, who needs to win this race, really, if he wants to take the championship. He's currently down in 7th place, so it's looking, if things stay as they are now, that Greg Franke will take the win, despite being down in 17th place at the moment. So Greg Franke just struggling with pace at this present time, as one of the Nissans is about to get lapped by Bas Linders. Hopefully that won't have cost him too much time as they come across the line. The McLaren's going to catch up to him in a tricky part of the circuit. If he comes up to him in the middle of Abbey, may have to get out the power. He probably did, so possibly didn't work quite as well as it may have done for Phil Quaife. Up into the hairpin. There's the Lamborghini of Georges Cabin. You could just see, I think, he's going to be the next man to have a lap put on him. So, there is the 3rd place McLaren of Phil Quaife. Another McLaren driver is Danny Watts, and the McLarens are performing strongly.
Danny, it's certainly great to see McLaren doing well. Both cars out on track.
Absolutely, 3rd and 6th, so moved forward from where we started. Alvaro's reported back that the car's running really well. He's happy with it, so yeah, so far so good.
How does it feel for you being part of the McLaren team here at the Blancpain Endurance Series?
Well, it's a great pleasure, privilege and honour to be driving for such a great team as McLaren. It's a great car to drive, just trying to adapt from the prototype that I've been used to this year, so it's taken a little bit of time, but I'm getting on top of it now.
Thank you.
Oh, and there's one of the McLarens going wide at Copse Corner. That's the 60 car, Phil Quaife. I wasn't 100% looking at that, so I'm not sure if he just made a mistake or whether that car's got a bit of a problem. We think he just ran a bit wide, a bit twitchy then through the next corner. Obviously the tyres are going to be a little bit dirty, and that's going to frustrate him because he was lapping quicker than Bas Linders in front of him. Had got the gap down to 0.7 of a second. So that's a real shame really for Phil Quaife, just dropping back, and you can see he's almost coming into the clutches now of Frank Kettler behind in the number 1 car, and also Alvaro Parente, who Danny Watts is going to be taking over from later in the race, has moved up into 5th place. He has got past Felipe Salquada, so the McLaren's now 3rd and 5th as opposed to 3rd and 6th, which is what that man Danny just told us. So positions changing all the time as we approach the first half-hour mark. There is Alvaro Parente, and you can see Felipe Salquada quite a way behind now actually, so I wonder if that was a mistake from Salquada on that previous lap. He is in the 29 car. It wasn't particularly slow, well, probably 1.5 seconds slower than he should be going, so possibly a little run wide. Alvaro Parente though is flying actually, his personal best first sector of the race so far. And the fastest middle sector of anyone on this lap so far. So Alvaro Parente really getting into the swing of things now, and it won't be too long if he keeps lapping at this kind of pace before he catches up with Frank Kettler. Took 0.8 of a second out of him in the middle phase of that lap, although I think Kettler had to do a bit of lappery. As there comes the Ferrari trying to find the way past the Lamborghini, I think, of Georges Cabin. Yes, it is. And eventually, Salquada fights his way through. So he's starting to lose a bit of ground now, Felipe Salquada. It might not be long before Gianluca Roda comes to join him at the front, although Roda is lapping a little slower, so it would take quite a lot for him to catch up at the moment. There's our race leader down the hangar straight. A 4-second advantage now over his teammate Bas Linders in 2nd place. So whatever that little glitch perhaps with the Alpina out at the front meant that he was lapping at the same time as 2nd and 3rd place men, and there was only 2 seconds between them all of a sudden it seems to have found a bit of pace again and has now pulled a 4-second gap as Alvaro Parente, as we suspected, sets his fastest lap of the race so far, and then subsequently and the fastest lap of anyone on that last lap, and then subsequently goes quickest in Sector 1 again. So He really is getting the hammer down now, to use a well-worn cliche, as Phil Quaife begins, I think, to get reeled in by Frank Heckler. On that last lap, Phil Quaife was some 3 seconds slower than his personal best. So I wonder if there is a little problem with Phil Quaife's car, unless he's just starting to overdrive or something like that. We saw him go wide at Copse Corner. It looked like a mistake, but the car that appeared to be very slow going to the grid now appears to be lapping fairly slowly. You can see how quickly Frank Heckler has closed in the gap. Sector 1 times were fine for Quaife. He lost half a second in the middle sector to Frank Heckler behind. So that could certainly be something worth finding out about. As it goes very, very wide on the exit of Luffield. And across the line they come. Well, he had a 1.2 second advantage as they came across the line last time. It's going to be less than that now. It's he's getting a little bit back into the swing of things, actually. A 2-minute 5.1. The gap is down to just 0.8 of a second. So I imagine it was maybe just another mistake from the McLaren. So we'll see. It'll be worth keeping an eye on. Georges Cabin on his way to the Gentleman Trophy if he finishes the race. As we saw on the grid, very, very happy. As there is our 8th place, number 9 car, Gianluca Roda. Still needing to be a lot further up the order if he wants to wrestle the Pro Cup away from Greg Franke, who currently isn't in for scoring very strongly at all, down in 18th position. 17th position, I should say. But he's lucky in that the number 9 Porsche and the number 32 car is only real contenders, apart from Marcus Paltala, which may be worth pointing out, because Paltala will be in 2nd place at the present time. If he finishes 2nd and Franke scores none, that will give him 18 points, which won't quite give him the title. So if the Baslinders, Marcus Paltala, number 40 car, can win, and Greg Franke doesn't finish in the points in the 33 Audi, then that will be a change. So number 3 car in, Julian Rodriguez, and it's quite early, I would have thought. I was expecting to see them come in at about the hour mark, but some fresh rubber going on. And yeah, they have got 3 drivers, so surely there will be a driver change. As into Luffield Corner comes Phil Quaife. What's his lap times like now? He was 0.6 of a second slower on that last lap. So no driver change, just a tyre change for that Aston. So there must have been some problem with the tyres, maybe a slow puncture the team spotted on the telemetry. Something along those lines as we hit the half-hour mark in this race. Rodriguez down into 19th place. There's Georges Cabin. Now, what's he doing? That looks like he's just had a spin, doesn't it, and is recovering. So the guy who only needs to finish to seal the Gentleman Trophy, and really could probably get away with not finishing as well, such as his advantage up at the front. We'll see what happened with him. It looked like just a spin and a recovery as he exits through Woodcote Corner. So Hexis were down in the pit lane then we just saw. The number 3 car, no driver change, just a change of tyres. As into Copse Corner then comes a nice little battle. That's the Rhino's Lippert car. So there is the Hexis car that has already made a pit stop, but no driver change. Haley's down in the pits. Let's find out what happened.
Philly, what was the reason behind the early pit stop?
I think we're just a driver mistake, but we'll see. We'll see what happened during the race. It's quite long, and we continue to do our best. Last race with the old Aston Ibera S9, and we will see. It's racing.
And what was the mistake that he made?
Yeah, he put a flat pot on the tires, on the front tires. So it's not possible to continue. So we need to change the tires.
Thank you.
So flat spotting, obviously, when you lock up and create a bit of a flat spot, which then every time you brake, picks up that point again. You probably have heard this explanation a million times, but that's what they mean when they say flat spotting. Car 63 must respect the track limits down at Stowe Corner. That's a message we've seen many, many a time, and that is Alex Buncombe in the Nissan. So that is going to be interesting to see. The Nissan obviously back out, which is good news because it pitted earlier on with a little bit of a problem, but they only need to finish to take the title. And this battle over third place is now very, very close indeed, isn't it? Phil Quaife just ahead of Frank Kettler. Into the right-hander they come. And then down the hanger straight. And is Kettler going to be close enough to pick up a bit of a toe? Bit of bodywork just kicked up there. And even though these two are battling and lapping a little bit slower than you'd have thought, Bas Linders is losing a bit of pace in his Mark VDS BMW Z4 as well. So the battle over second place really is three ways if Bas Linders continues this kind of pace. There you can see him as a little look up the inside, nowhere near close enough though for Frank Kettler. Just a little show of the nose to try and put Phil Quaife off, who it looks as though it was just driver mistakes on those 2 laps that lost him all that time. Possibly that one mistake at Copse just getting him a little bit rattled. So there's our second place man, Bas Linders, and you'll see in the back of the shot coming through there is the third and fourth place men. So it is very close indeed. Richard Westbrook sets his personal best lap of the race on that last lap. Has he closed the gap to Felipe Salaquada? No, he hasn't. It's still fairly substantial actually, some 24 seconds between the two of them. There's Max Martin and Laurence, the team manager of Mark VDS Racing, and they are watching on. So into Luffield Corner they come, and it's second place for the BMW Z4 behind the BMW Alpina, and it's looking like a very, very good afternoon for the Mark VDS Racing team. The Belgians very pleased with their progress today, I have no doubt. Still, as I've said, a long way to go. Frank Kettler, now he's behind Phil Quaife, is starting to lap at a similar pace. In fact, that last lap he was a couple of tenths slower, so the gap expands again to just 0.6 of a second, so nothing massive by any stretch of the imagination. Into Maggots and Beckett's, and then out through Chapel. Kettler very, very strong through there, really hugging the inside line on the exit of Beckett's. That gives him great slingshot out through Chapel, and he's going to be right up behind Phil Quaife. Quaife knows it, holds the middle ground. Kettler darting around in his mirrors, decides to go to the inside, dummies towards the outside, and surely that's going to try and set up a move into Vale, because he'll have to take a shallower line through there, will Phil Quaife, but he manages to keep the speed up. Good driving. Down into Vale Corner, Kettler not close enough. If anything, he needed to dummy the other way down the straight, but then he probably didn't have quite enough momentum to do that. So they turn through the right-hander. Then behind, the other McLaren is starting to come under pressure as well. So Alvaro Parente, bizarrely, after setting some fantastic lap times, has now been reeled in by Felipe Salaquada behind by the tune of 1.1 seconds on that previous lap. So much so, the gap between them as they cross the line was only 0.3 of a second. So those two, in fact, are a little bit closer. They've got some lappery to deal with in a minute. So the two McLarens were running in third and fifth, but both defending for their lives at the moment. Mark Hayek setting his fastest first sector of the race so far, as does the 20 Ferrari behind him, which is Jean-Luc Bourbelique. And the pit board's P1 for the Alpina, a 5.4 second advantage as the battle for third and fourth comes past. That looks fairly close. Felipe Salaquada's just dropped off the back a little bit of Alvaro Parente behind him. And so we've got about 20 minutes really before pit stops start getting underway and the order starts really shaking up. And look at this, look how close the Ferrari gets, look how strong it is through this right-hander at Beckett's, much more over the inside curb, and then slings it out a lot wider as well through Chapel Corner, and that's how he gets such a good long run onto the straight. not much slipstreaming in GT cars compared to single-seaters, but there's still a noticeable effect. Into the right-hander at Stowe, and Quaife and Kettler fairly quick through the first speed trap. Bastline is very slow through that first speed trap, actually. He was 10 kilometers an hour slower than everyone else. And Frank Kettler is reported to have a loose under tray, we are being told, so we'll have a little keep an eye on that one. That's not going to do his downforce any good at all. The underside of the car not key for downforce in GT cars, but it certainly makes an effect. A black and white flag this time for the 63 car, Alex Buncombe again, not respecting track limits, so he really needs to behave or he'll end up with a drive-through penalty or something like that. There's Dedal having a look on. He is going to be taking over later on in this race from our leading Alpina, which you can see just threading its way through the traffic past the Leo Mansell Lotus, now past the Level Racing car, I imagine still driven by Christoph Corton, because it was very early in the race that he got that puncture, so he would have probably said, no, I want to stay in, I want to get my racing time out of this. So they come across the line once more. 18 laps completed now by our race leader. And what is the gap like? It's gone into 1.8 seconds between second and third, but only half a second between third and fourth, and 0.3 of a second. There you can see the under tray just dangling down. It's flapping around, so it doesn't look like it's a serious safety issue or anything like that. Particularly, not that I know much about engineering or these kind of things, but to me it doesn't look too bad. Now, is the Lotus going to get in the way here of the McLaren? Perhaps a little bit as they head out onto the hangar straight. Phil Quaife looked like he managed to keep fairly decent momentum, though. And look at the two orange McLarens, both about to be attacked on the run down into Stowe Corner. Little look up the inside, not close enough again from Frank Kettler. One of the Porsches now is about to get involved in the action. Hopefully he'll move to the inside. He does. Well, he comes out late on the brakes on the outside, and Kettler sees his chance and goes through. So a last-minute look, and there's nothing Phil Quaife can do on the inside at Club. So great opportunistic driving from Frank Kettler, got himself in a good position through Stowe, saw the gap and went for it as they tried to lap the number 19 Level Racing Porsche. So Frank Kettler up into third position now in the number 1 Vita 4-1 Ferrari 458 Italia. These two have been lapping very, very closely, as we've seen, pace-wise. So I wouldn't be surprised if Phil Quaife begins to mount an attack. Through the loop, through Aintree. There is the 63 car of Alex Buncombe. Another black and white flag being shown to him. And hopefully he will have been told that he needs to stop that sooner rather than later, because otherwise he's going to be in quite a bit of trouble. Into Brooklands then comes our new third place man, Frank Kettler, ahead of Phil Quaife. And there's the second Ferrari McLaren battle. It's like Formula 1 days of old around here, isn't it? Ferraris and McLarens duking it out. Not for the wins though. BMW out in front. And it's now a 2.8 second advantage for the Mark VDS BMW Z4, being piloted at the moment by Bas Linders. It's Alvaro Parente in 5th, then Philippe Salaquada in 6th, 7th for Richard Westbrook, 8th for Gianluca Roda. Nick Homerson is in 9th and leading Pro-Am. Bert Longer is in 10th. Second in Pro-Am is the 90 car now, which is the David Jones car. So that's a good work from them. With Jan Clary in 12th, and third in class is Mark Hayek. Here again comes the attack from a different Ferrari, this time on a different McLaren. This is Philippe Salaquada trying to make his way past Alvaro Parente. Down the hill towards Vale. Not close enough. A much bigger car, the Ferrari, isn't it, than the little McLaren. Both built to GT3 specifications. Not running too wide over the exit, which is good news. They don't want to get in trouble. Bas Linders is in a little bit of trouble. He's just being told He's got to respect the track limits. Look at this, side by side into Beckett's. That's not a good place to go side by side. Fantastic battle. I think this is one of the AF Corsa cars, so it's the as they turn through the right-hander, it's the 20 car, isn't it? Yes, so it's the Sofrev Jean-Luc Boblique machine that's in this battle, and he is doing dueling, I think, with the Sport Garage Ferrari of Eric Carroll. And Carroll looks back up the inside. Is he going to make it through? No, not quite. So good work there from Boblique. Carroll again having a look up the inside into Vale Corner. Not quite close enough. This is the scrap in Pro-Am over 5th position in Pro-Am and 16th position overall. Oh, big take of curb there from the inside. That's really going to upset the car of Eric Carroll. And as a result, just drops back a little bit. Side by side into Beckett's was something you don't see very often, or certainly something you don't see very often when they then make it to Chapel. As they come down into the village right-hander. And, oh, it's a spin. Round goes the Sofrev car. Jean-Luc Boblique, after having that great battle, loses a number of positions. Looked like he just got on the power too soon or something like that. Bit of a strange spin to have there. But round he goes, and all that hard work. He's only lost, well, he's lost 2 positions. One to the car he was battling with, and then subsequently one to the Lamborghini, I think, of Greg Franke. Was it? Sorry, not the Lamborghini, the Audi. Of Greg Franke, possibly. As they come through. No, it was one of the Rhino Lippert motorsport cars, wasn't it? Lorenzo Biero de Vega, who made his way up then into 17th position and subsequently 6th in the Pro-Am category. So the Sofrev Autosport Promotion, Jean-Luc Boblique, currently at the top of the Pro-Am Championship, but with Nick Homerson, that could be key actually, because with Nick Homerson leading Pro-Am, and Jean-Luc Boblique spinning his way down into 7th position in Pro-Am, that could well hand the championship to Nick Homerson and Louis Maciel come the end of this race. But we're not even at 3rd race distance, haven't had any changes of drivers yet, which will have different speeds, especially in Pro-Am. Pro, in theory, should all be similar speeds, but Pro-Am, you expect different paces from different drivers. As the Boblique turns to the right hander. Here's the replay then. Goes wide in the first one, and then does he get on the power early here, or let's see. Oh, he just drifts out wide. That looked like perhaps too much speed into the left-hander. Lifts off. As soon as you lift off in GT cars, the back end starts to get away from you, and it was a really slow, kind of pathetic-looking spin, unfortunately. So that, as I say, dropped him down to 18th position and 6th, 7th place in Pro-Am. So this is the 33 car of Greg Franke. He is right up behind the number 7 Lamborghini of Jose Manuel Balbiani. He's having a look up the... yeah, he's down in 15th position, which, I mean, if things stay how they are, he's still winning the championship, but it's not exactly how they would have liked to have gone out. Not really going out on a high, is it? Finishing down in 15th place, and we've got a spin for the Golf Racing Lamborghini. Unfortunately, Frédéric Fatien has lost it on the exit of Brooklands. Recovers. He was running down in the mid-20s. Car 35 now, so Richard Westbrook now has to respect the track limits at turn 7 as well. So he will just take a bit of a tighter line through there as this battle continues then. It's still Jose Manuel Balbiani running in 14th position and 4th place in Pro-Am, battling with the 2nd lowest, I think, Pro Cup racer, Greg Franke. So really is a difficult day for Franke at the moment. And look at this, Frank Kettler is right on the back of Bas Linders now for 2nd place. So the gap has really come down. 1.6 seconds on that last lap the gap came down. And all of a sudden the Ferrari is right up behind the BMW Z4 as they come across the line. And I think they'll be very keen to hold on to these positions as we approach the first pit stop time. into Copse corner. And down the little straight before Maggots and Beckett's now. Is Phil Quaife coming with him? No, not really. Phil Quaife about a second behind. This could get a bit tight here, though, because they've got caught up behind Georges Cabin in the Lamborghini, and that is going to compromise Bas Linders. Somehow, he managed to get away with that, though. Frank Keckler not really able to close in as much as I thought he would with Georges Cabin. Nowhere really for Cabin to go in that little section. Keckler looks to the inside, and Keckler moves up into second place. Does he? Bas Linders comes across to take the line and hold on to the position. Keckler not willing to get his nose hit off or anything like that. Under braking for Vale corner. This is the battle for second position overall. Into the right-hander. No massive championship consequences can come from this little scrap, but it's fantastic to watch. And look at that, Phil Quaife in the McLaren right up there too, so it's now a three-way battle for second position. Into the right-hander at Abbey. Then through the left-hand kick at Farm, and Bas Linders looks like he's just set himself down a little bit. Just got everything back together again. Through the left-hander at Aintree. And they're all beginning to close in on the leader as well, aren't they? The leader, Nicholas Meyer-Melnhof, did have some 4 seconds up at the front. He's now got 2.4, so whether he's just cruising or whether he's got a problem or whether he's just used too much of his tyres, because of course they will be changing tyres when they change drivers in theory. Out onto the start-finish straight they come then. Here comes the leader, past the commentary box, over what will be the finish line, and then the next three right together. Only 0.3 of a second between all three of them, well 0.6 of a second I should say, between all three of them, as they head towards Maggots and Beckett's. Now this is where Bas Linders got caught out last time around by the slower Georges Cabin, but it looks as though he's got it all sorted this time around. You can see the amount of time that Keckler was able to reel in, 1.6 seconds on lap 21. This is now the 24th lap of this race, and we're approaching at 1/3 distance in about 10 minutes time. Another look to the inside, and that's not really going to help, I don't think, doing that, Frank, because he's somehow able to dart to the inside and still keep decent mid-corner speed, so it's impressive work as Laurence watches on. A little bit nervously perhaps, because they're all lapping quicker. Look at that, the gap came down again, 2.1 seconds now between first and second place, even though they're battling. So there is our top four, 50 minutes into this race. The top four are all within a straight of one another, all in one camera shot. And this could well develop into a fantastic end to the season in the Blancpain Endurance Series. Down into the right-hander at Village, and that is one of the McLarens. It's Alvaro Parent. After such a fantastic drive, he's pulled off. Well, he hasn't even pulled off, he's just stopped at the side of the circuit somewhere, and that's a real shame. We were saying earlier how well the cars were performing, and we were being told by Danny Watts how good the cars were feeling for Alvaro Parent, but unfortunately that is him out of this race, I imagine. Hopefully that car, where is that? That's down at Club. So here come the marshals. That's a fairly safe place, and that is Smokey. That's the 100 M3, isn't it? Giuseppe De Pasquale. Now what is going on there? That's his own oil. That's a massive blow up, isn't it? He needs to stop driving around with that one, I would suggest. Yeah, good boy. And he'll pull off at the side of the road. Hopefully that hasn't left too much oil. Could have driven to a marshal's post there, but Parent's got going again, so maybe he just needed a push start. Suddenly, 51 minutes into this race, it's all kicked off, and it sounds like that team was getting ready to pit, and there we've got one of the Nissans in the pits. And is that a bit smoky, Richard Westbrook? It looks to be it. They're taking off the bonnet. There's the BMW M3, so it seems like 51 minutes into this race is the best time to retire, because everyone's doing it. It's clearly the fashion. I can't quite see the Nissan from my commentary box, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on there. Here is the battle for second place, still raging, and they've all caught in on the Alpina. Only 1.3 seconds now between first and second place. Alvaro Parent got a little bit and then has decided to stop again. And, very, very wide there from Frank Kettler on the exit of Abbey. So these top four all starting to concertina together. I just wonder if they're going to tell Phil Quaife just to ease off a bit if they know what the reliability problem was with Alvaro Parent's car. So we've got double wave yellows at turn 1, which will, I think, actually be Abbey, won't it? As you can see, 2 cars off there down at the new arena complex. So the marshals there having a bit of a busy time. Look at the Alpina. He's still lapping decently, but for some reason the others have been able to close in substantially now, and so much so, Bas Linders is probably within a second of the leading Alpina as they exit Luffield Corner. Are we going to see any pitters this time around? No, we're not. Through Woodcut they come, and the gap, it's got to be less than half a second, isn't it, as they come across the line? It is 0.513. And the Alpina, it's lapping all right. It's not lapping epically slowly as they slow down, unless this is a tactical thing, unless this is to try and give the 40 car of Bas Linders. He, of course, is sharing the car with Marcus Paltala, and if things stayed how they are and Paltala took the win, then I guess in theory he would be the champion. Alvaro Parent has just about crawled back to the pits. It's a bit early in the race to be delving into team orders, though, isn't it? So, and Bas Linders, it's not as though he's just let him through. Very, very interesting indeed as they come up to lap the Gulf Racing Lamborghini. And it looks like they're going to catch the Gulf Racing Lamborghini at a fairly decent position. The car of Frederic Fatian has already had a spin. He'll just stay to the outside of the second apex of Club Corner. And through they go, but Bas Linders actually has got right onto the back now as they come down towards Abbey. Frank Kettler's dropped back a little bit. The 2 Mark VDS cars, well, they'll be bitter nails, I think, in the garage at the moment. Don't take each other off, gentlemen, they will be saying in French or Flemish, or I don't know what their native language is in that part of Belgium. But here's Bas Linders up the inside. Does he know the Alpina just about has enough drag, but surely it won't be long before Nicholas Meyer Melnhoff in that Alpina V6 will lose out to the BMW Z4 of Bas Linders down the hill towards Brooklands. No, Linders not close enough. As there they are, Maxime Martin watching on, possibly wondering what's happened to the Alpina, and possibly delighted that it has happened, because he will be taking over that BMW. The lead 2 have completely dropped Frank Kettler now. So what's happened to Frank Kettler? He's in the pits. Frank Kettler, the number 1 car, has pulled into the pit lane. So that means that the first and second cars on the circuit are left free to battle for themselves. It moves Phil Quaife up into 3rd place. Through Maggots and Beckett's. And there is Kettler pulling into the pit lane then. And it's going to be a driver change, I imagine. Yep, out gets Frank Kettler. Who's that getting in? We'll have to wait and see when the timing updates itself. 36 spun and rejoined at turn 4. So I'm not sure who that is. There is Alvaro Parent. It did make it back. Is that... Are they just filling it up with fuel? That's not a fuel issue, is it? Surely Parente hasn't just run out of fuel on his way around. That would be interesting to see. So Parente in the pits, Kettler in the pits, and Chris Diamond in the pits in the number 22 Sport Garage Ferrari 430 Scuderia. Into Abbey Corner though come our 2 leaders. When will they decide to make their pit stop? The Alpina still lapping decently, so I think, well, it's difficult to tell really. A tyre change going on now for the McLaren. Got a car off on the inside of the loop there. Or was that slowing Ferrari? Yeah, it's that slowing Ferrari. Very, very slow Ferrari the 42 machine, the Sport Garage car driven by Eric Cairol, who we saw having a fantastic battle earlier on. The 20 car is in the pits. That's who he was having the battle with. Boulik. Are either of our two leaders going to pit this time around? Through Luffield, will they hug the inside line? No, they both stay out for another lap. And still half a second between them, I imagine. It was half a second for the last 3 laps. This time around, it's 0.8 of a second, so the Alpina just getting back into the... It's inconsistent lap times, really, from the Alpina. He's been going from mid 1 minute 4s to late 1 minute 6s. Second McLaren in. That is the car of Phil Quaife, the front-running McLaren. It's been interesting to see where he comes out compared to Frank Kettler. Into the car climbs the second driver. It'll be either Adam Christodoulou or Klaas Hummel. Climbing into that McLaren. And all seems to be well as they refuel the car. It's been an impressive performance so far from Phil Quaife, apart from he was right with the leaders, wasn't he? But then he just had a scruffy lap or two. I think that's all it can be put down to. You're not allowed to refuel and change the tyres at the same time in Blancpain, so that's why as soon as the refueling rig came off, they all legged it round to change some tyres. So that's it done. No, we've got the offside to change now as well. It's looking like a decent stop. So Frank Kettler, has he left the pits? Well, the timing screen still says in pit, but I wonder if that will stay in pit until he crosses the line. We'll keep an eye out as the McLaren exits. Away you go. There we go. So it takes quite a while for the cars to get up and get started again. And you can't see Frank Kettler in the pit lane, so we'll see if we can pick him up on the circuit and see how that battle for what is 3rd position overall finally resolves himself. The two race leaders still lapping barely anything apart, and both of them stay out for another lap as well. So obviously the two drivers, Nicolas Meyer-Melnhof and Bas Leinders, very happy with how things are progressing. Philippe Salquada sets his personal best Sector 1, so he's obviously happy with his car as well. As the two Mark VDS racing cars fly into the Maggers and Beckett's complex. There is one of the Vita for One machines. And that is Kettler. So Kettler's been in there for a long time. There must have been a problem down there, because he's either been in and come out, or he needs a push start as well, because he came in a lap before the McLaren. Oh no, it is car 2 actually, so it's not Frank Kettler. It is the number 2 machine of Nick Homerson, who was handed over to one of his co-drivers. We'll find out who in due course. So no dramas for Frank Kettler. Drama up at the front though, because these two are absolutely nose to tail. This is the closest they've been all race. Down towards the right-hander they come. And just trying to stretch a gap. I mean, whether they can be involved, maybe whether they're under threat from the 3rd place battle, will depend on how quick their pit stops are. The two Belgian racing team cars, I imagine they won't bring them in at the same time as they turn through Village. Okay, so that wasn't Frank Kettler we were looking at, but that is, you can just see the top of the Blancpain car on the left-hand side, and so Frank Kettler is still in the pits. I thought the timing screen said that, wasn't 100% sure when they updated themselves, but definitely the 60 McLaren's back out, and Frank Kettler, after a stonking drive, is still in the pit lane with some form of problem, unfortunately. So we'll have to wait, probably have to wait for quite a while for the pit stops to all sort themselves out, so we really get a true order. The two race leaders staying out there still. Mark Hayek gets out of the car, hands over to Peter Cox in the 24 machine. In the Blancpain Reiter Lamborghini LP560. And Here we go. Strap him in. Attaches water line. I could do one of them. It's getting a bit hot up here in this greenhouse of a commentary box. Fuel goes in, and they get ready to change the tyres. The 24 car. And oh, look at this, right together, RR2 leaders, because there's a McLaren in there, and that will be technically a back marker, that McLaren, and Bas Linders is through. So Bas Linders moves to the inside and takes the leader of the race away from the Alpina, just because of the confusion caused by what is a back marking McLaren, but on the leader's pace. So the 60 car, which has been taken over now by Klaus Hummel, he will be doing the second stint for the McLaren, has inadvertently caused a change in the race lead, and Bas Linders is gone. He is rocketing away up at the front. They won the race last time out in Magny Court, and